You are listening to Leading the Factory Forward with your host, Lynn Friest. We share interviews with manufacturing experts and strategies for embracing the digital future, recruiting a new workforce, finding new business. Lynn is an advanced manufacturing strategist and leadership consultant who is on a mission to show manufacturing leaders how to improve their current operations while preparing for a digital future. And here's your host, Lynn Friest.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Leading the Factory Forward. This is episode number 67, and it's Predictive Maintenance with Conor Flaherty. Our goal on Leading the Factory Forward is to help you create a compelling future for yourself, your teams, and your organization. I encourage you to visit my website and download the summary at the bottom of the podcast episode. You can use that as a tool to capture notes as you start exploring the ideas from this episode. Or to help you get started on your journey and to stay up to date on new episodes, please download the free worksheet, 3 Steps You Need for a More Productive Workday. I'm delighted this episode to have Conor Flaherty with us. He's going to be sharing his insights on developing predictive maintenance programs to both minimize costs and to create more output. Conor is going to be talking about predictive maintenance in general and 4 very interesting applications: vibration analysis, thermography, oil analysis, and leak detection. He's also sharing ideas about how to take your first steps in creating a program to, again, upscale your maintenance activities. I've worked with Conor for several years, and I'm very pleased to have him on the show today. Welcome, Conor. It's great to have you on the show at Leading the Factory Forward, and appreciate you being with us today. And I'll turn it over to you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, great. Well, good to meet you again. My name's Conor Flaherty. So I run reliability and predictive maintenance services. So we're actually a division of one of the largest shell distributors in the country. We offer reliability and predictive maintenance technologies, really even getting further than that, going to the proactive side, getting beyond the predictive technologies now as technology evolves, with the leading goal of helping either eliminate downtime or shifting it from unplanned to planned, so we can figure out from a maintenance and manufacturing standpoint how to fix things cost effectively instead of continuing to slap the Band-Aid on that eventually catches up with all of us that have places in maintenance. So that's the 2-cent elevator speech and overview.
Okay, great. How did your company, or you and your company, get started in predictive maintenance? I know you were primarily, to begin with, a lubrication company.
Yeah. So the company that owns our division, Rilco, they were started by a former Shell engineer. So from day one, Rilco really understood that it wasn't just about showing up and dropping off a product, but it was helping support the customer from an engineering value add perspective, because there's a lot more than just dumping a lubricant into your vehicle or your industrial system. So with that just has continued to evolve through the years. Really about 10, 15 years ago, we really started making more of a push to add on and provide those additional services and those additional technologies, because we were getting a lot of feedback from customers that they didn't have the maintenance capabilities that they wanted to have. They didn't have the bodies, and they were having breakdowns. And it was a way we could bring a product to market. We were very cost effective for anybody that was an oil customer, because it was good for us. It was good for them. It was a real win-win, and has continued to evolve as they've gotten people like myself that are really into technology and trying to do things a new way if it's better. Sometimes it's not, but a lot of times if we start looking at some of the technologies that have been in other sectors and other markets, we can use them in manufacturing and make our equipment and our people a lot more efficient and effective.
Yeah, and when I've talked with you in the past, like you say, you bring expertise that at small, medium-sized manufacturers, they simply can't afford that level of expertise just within their own operation.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges we run into daily is everybody wants a world-class reliability program. Very few people want to or willing to or can pay for that. So one of the fun things I get to do with my job is we really get to learn where the largest opportunities are, where the best fruit is to pick, that we can make the biggest impact with the smallest investment for the customer. So pretty cool thing to get to do every day. And we see a lot of opportunities to help make plants more efficient. And again, labor is the name of the game right now. Anything we can do to help optimize the labor hours of our maintenance professionals. We are few and far between, and there's a lot of us that are retiring in the next couple of years. So we're trying to figure out how to take people that grew up and didn't work on cars. And, every time they added a part, they broke something. So they started to learn about what run to failure really was in their daily life before they became professionals. We had a lot of people that grew up here in the Midwest on farms. We're seeing less and less of that, but we are starting to see people wanting to get into the trade, but they don't have any of that tribal knowledge where they grew up in a manufacturing maintenance family, or again, they grew up as a car guy. So they learned some of these things inherently by doing it wrong before they came to work for our companies. So ideally, we want to put tools in their hands so they don't learn how to do it wrong on $1 million piece of equipment, even with the best intentions.
Great. I know there's a variety of services and things you work on. Maybe you could go through some of them and provide some examples.
Yeah, the technologies, there's a lot of them we use for very specific applications, but some of the big ones, really the big four: vibration analysis. Vibration's been around for a long time. There's roots from where it really developed hunting submarines back in World War II. And really took off in the, the 60s and 70s because we were using it for the aerospace industry. Vibration is a great tool. It gets a bad rap sometimes for people that went through vibration programs in the 80s because they looked at low resolution programs. We do high resolution. So we're looking at vibration analysis where we're literally pulling the equipment apart based on the frequency spectrums and looking at individual components so we can really get that very early detection of what's going on. If there is a maintenance activity we can do to bring it back to full health, we can. Otherwise, we start building maintenance strategies and targets based on what we see and what we know is failing. So hopefully you don't shut a whole line down. Next one would be infrared thermography. Awesome technology. It's getting cheaper and cheaper every day. We're to the point where you can find portable handheld thermal cameras that are great to put in the hands of your technicians. They're not high resolution, but they're great to couple with a high resolution program. So we have a lot of customers where we'll do a quarterly route. Their guys have a small thermal camera that they can use from a mechanical standpoint to validate that they're seeing the same things we saw and it's getting better or worse. But then from an electrical standpoint, which is really where that technology first kind of worked its way into the factories from a risk mitigation standpoint. If you're not doing infrared thermography on your electrical cabinets, you're missing some potentials for some pretty major failures and also, risks of fire, which are never good in a factory. And then really the last place we use that technology pretty frequently is with steam traps and heating systems. Great way to see a huge cost reduction if you can catch steam traps that are blowing through because they're just wasting money through process. Next to the kind of the big four is ultrasonic. This is a great technology. We love this as a lube company. And that's kind of the neat thing about still working for a family business, even though we've gotten quite large over the years, is we really put the customer first. So one of the things our guys lead for on the oil side is they like to bring me in and say, hey, Conor's going to look at your bearings and tell you you're buying too much grease from me. Because that's one of the biggest things we're doing in plants today is we're putting way too much grease in our bearings. We compromise seals and we start pulling in those small particles that do the most damage. So we spend a lot of time telling people to buy less grease from us, using ultrasonic technologies to get the perfect amount of grease into a bearing. The other area we use that technology a lot is leaks. Compressed air leaks. Air is one of the most expensive input costs in our plant. We're literally taking raw energy, compressing it with mechanical force, and then pushing it out through the plant. And we have some guy that leaves a hose cracked a little bit and it's sitting there hissing away in our plant. That might be $500 to $1,000 a year per hose reel we hear leaking. So huge cost savings for plants to just stop wasting that energy manufacturing process. But that's also why you see a lot of new technologies that come out into the factory that they're going directly to electric motors so that we don't take that step of taking electricity, transferring it to a pneumatic process, and then transferring it back to some form of energy. And then oil analysis, another big one. Great opportunity to see what's going on. It's kind of like going to the doctor and getting your cholesterol checked, but for your equipment. There's a whole lot more we can do with it, and especially with the new lubrication technologies. Getting kind of weird for your lubrication supplier to be telling you, but there are ways we can keep oil alive longer. If we keep it clean, we keep it dry, we make some investments on the front end in filtration, and if we have wet environments, vacuum dehydration, we can actually keep oil alive a lot longer. So great ability to have a conversation and say, what's your goal on this? And let's look at strategy A, B, or C. And A's buy brand new oil, B's do partial top offs, and C's we try to keep it alive as long as we can using vacuum dehydration and technologies, and really look at the numbers on paper and help make the decision what's better for the customer. And in the long run, we both win then. So those are kind of the big four. Some other technologies we see come into play is motor testing. So we'll do online and offline, looking at integrity of wires, especially when you start getting into food plants. You'll see where the wiring starts to degrade, where we run it under the floor because we have to do washdowns for a sanitary purpose. Desiccant breathers, color coding for lubricant and critical chemical storage. Again, keep stuff clean, keep it dry. Precision alignments and precision balancing. Anything that's spinning, we'll usually see this through a vibration technology, where we'll see things are out of alignment. When they're out of alignment, they put extra stress on that bearing in ways it's not meant to have. So if we get them aligned, they run better, they save energy, and they last a whole lot longer. So I know I'm leaving a couple out. There's a lot of little things we do for individual customers or individual projects or processes. But those are some of the kind of the big ones that if you haven't taken the step on any of those, it's probably time to look into a reliability journey with some of those technologies.
Great, Conor. So how about some examples, like for vibration? I know you've shared in the past some examples of a customer you went into and really made a difference for them.
Yeah, so vibration's a fantastic one because, we start to see where we compromise bearings again with grease. So we'll see a lot of bearings where we over-grease them and we start to cause failure by damaging seals. So vibration's really good because you've got what's called, and I'm using my hands that you on the podcast won't be able to see, but we have what's called the P to F curve. And that's really mapping the process of failure of an equipment through its life. Kind of like when I know I have a defect in my heart or I have high cholesterol, I start doing things to try to maintain myself and my body as well as I can to not get worse or know where I'm going. And we can do the same thing with our equipment. And vibration catches things very early on. So there's an example of a combustion fan we were just working on a week ago where a brand new fan was installed. It's on a mill that produces a product where they need it to manufacture hydrogen. So fairly small assembly for the most part, but it is critical. If they shut that down, they can't produce the hydrogen they need to create the temperatures for their process. So it shuts the whole plant down. Not good. And they had imbalance in the fan. So we were able to go in and pull some vibration data and really give them some direction on where they needed to focus their maintenance on that piece of equipment. So it was brand new. It was actually just commissioned. So, again, kind of talking those conversations of being a partner with your customer. We told them we can come in, we can do a balancing job on this, but you just had it installed. I'd go back to your original contractor, and then we'll come back in after it gets fixed. And we'll pull vibration data again to just see where the health of that piece of equipment's at. Again, so they know if they've got a warranty issue coming up because the contractor installed things wrong. We want to make sure we haven't compromised that outboard bearing because we've had, axial and horizontal stresses it was never designed to take.
And another one I know you've shared a lot of, I've seen the pictures and everything, is the thermoscans. I think you've done some marvelous work with companies doing very simple scans.
Yeah, I love thermography. It seems like everybody in this industry gets a technology that's kind of their passion. And we're lucky because everybody on our team kind of seems to have gravitated to a technology. So we have experts in each. And thermography's always kind of been my baby because I'm fascinated by the transfer of heat. You can see the world around us interacting with the systems because it's all energy. It's showed in the form of heat. So some really cool projects we've done. Things like on the electrical side, we'll catch compressors that they are minutes away from shutdown if they didn't fix an electrical problem critically. We were at a plant pretty recently with that where that's exactly what happened. And they were able to shut it down temporarily over a break and get that electrical component fixed. But if it had stayed in the state that it was not long for this world. It would have caused a lot of electrical damage in the equipment. And they probably would have been really struggling because they were already down a compressor for a mechanical issue. Thermography, again, electrical is where we see it a lot in the world in the past of manufacturing. But if you've never thought of a mechanical IR program, it's a great thing to start thinking about because all of these technologies cost money to touch a piece of equipment. We've got some great things happening with the Internet of Things and technology starting to come to where we can do things remotely. There's still a lot of challenges with that. Internet of Things is great on paper, but trying to get Wi-Fi into your plant and trying to integrate all of these different manufacturers' solutions to where you're confident that your data is kept safe and secure is a challenge. And it's a challenge for our IT departments to get that sorted out. So while I see that continuing to move forward, there's a lot of challenges with it. And a great place to start if you haven't already is to just start getting into a mechanical route. So we'll look at bearings. Instead of looking at 50 to 100 pieces of equipment with vibration, you might be able to look at 1,000 with the thermal camera. You're going to catch it later on that P to F curve because you're starting to see heat in the form of that energy transfer. So it's not really far up there and early on like you'd see with vibration, but great tool where you can catch things before they fly apart and start to ask questions when you see heat where it shouldn't be.
Yeah, Conor, that's great. And I recall a project I saw that you did where really you kind of went through a factory fairly quickly, and yet you identified one critical opportunities, but also some really helped them avoid some big cost downtimes.
Yeah, that's pretty common with any of these technologies. So I'm trying to remember which specific example I showed you because it's been a while, Lynn, but we have a lot of those every day, especially from an electrical standpoint. If you haven't done an electrical thermal study, there's some big scary monsters hanging out in your electrical system. So go find somebody local to do a thermal scan. If you're not in the Midwest, give me a call. We'll go take a look at some things. It's kind of neat. We like to help people set up their own programs. If it's not right to do work with us, we'll help consult and get you going and then step away. But if you're not applying to these technologies to manufacture, you're not doing the best you could for cost savings and adding value to your manufacturing process.
Yeah, the project I remember, without naming names, I just remember, even for me as a non-expert, the report you provided, the pictures you provided, it really summarized the key things that I needed to look at as an owner of that facility.
I love the thermal technology. I call it the sexy predictive technology because It's very visual. That's a challenge when we look at vibration analysis, and we look at ultrasonic leak, and we look at oil analysis. All of those technologies, they're very squiggly lines, and it's a lot of data that's kind of nebulous and up here. And if you don't understand what total acid number really means, you're really relying on somebody that you need to be able to trust them that they're telling you that this is really an issue. It's really nice to put a thermal image in front of somebody and say red bad, green good. You can still, manipulate levels and get somebody that makes something look a little worse than it is, but it's a great tool to put in front of the guy that just started in maintenance and wants to learn, all the way up to the plant manager, that when you tell that story right with thermal imaging, it really helps everybody understand where the issue is.
Yeah, it's kind of like the other one I recall is the air leaks. And you talked about that earlier, but that was something where you could really quantify it. And I think in all your work, that really helps me as a business leader, business owner to understand, okay, yeah, there's real money sitting out there. And especially as we talk about only having enough people, enough equipment, we need to have all of it working most often if we can.
Absolutely. And, we've really worked hard to try to bridge that gap because, it's so different than it was 20 years ago where you were talking to people at the same level with you. We move up and down through the organizations a lot more in maintenance than we ever have before. We're getting the ears of senior leadership in companies that, hey, we need to invest this to save this. But we've just got to talk at different levels. So we've got to be able to communicate with the layman. We've got to be able to communicate with the expert mechanic in our team. And then we've also got to be able to sell it up to the senior leadership in our team. So that's the key when we're using any of these technologies is how do we put it in front of our team with a format that helps.
Yeah. And then you mentioned working with the maintenance technicians. Again, they may only have, they're skilled, but they may not be skilled in your particular technology. Are you able to kind of give them, I'll say, the 5 things to look for in some of this or whatever to help them at least know when to call you?
Yeah, we sure try. There's such a broad spread of skill sets in maintenance right now, which is good and bad. Again, we used to see maintenance was the guy that, he didn't take over the family farm, but he loved turning wrenches and, has made a great profession. I mean, that's one of the best well-kept secrets, I think, here in the Midwest is there are great jobs in maintenance and manufacturing if you want to work hard and develop a skill set. And, we're seeing such a diverse skill set now, as I kind of hinted at earlier, was, we're seeing those people that, they're in their 50s and they still want to work for quite a bit of time, but they've developed that skill set over a lifetime. They have the tools, they have the toolbox, they have the certificates. And now we have a whole new group of maintenance professionals coming in, and some of them are car guys and gearheads and farmers, but quite a few of them are, hey, I ran a machine over there and I want to make more money. And I flipped burgers and I want to make more money and provide for my family. And those are a noble cause, and we've got to figure out how to support those people and train and educate them. So probably the thing I do most in my job is I don't sell predictive technologies, as I train people and educate them and help put tools in their hands so that they can kind of start using these technologies to build their programs that'll be in their plants for the next 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember in a different context when we first were introducing robots, everybody had to learn it's different working with robots than working with other things. I mean, you have to be sure you're out of the way. There's safety concerns. They don't take well to hammers, those kinds of things. So I'm sure the same is true now as the technology for our equipment's gotten more complex. The work you need to do gets more complex.
Absolutely.
Thinking about some of these things, again, small, medium-sized manufacturers, they may have thought about it. They may have experienced a breakdown, but what are some of the ways, if they can't do everything at once, what are some of the ways you suggest they get started in these things?
I would say pick a technology or ask someone that's knowledgeable to help you pick a technology where you're going to get kind of the most bang for the buck and get some wins. This is an education process because we've got that huge spread of technology and knowledge in our plant. So I'll tell you, if you've never done any of this and you have some mechanics that have been very good at their trade over the years, you're probably going to introduce these technologies and they're going to go, it's not going to work. So we really need to kind of put together a plan of how do we do something where there's the biggest impact so we can show an ROI. And then how do we implement it to make the lives of our maintenance professionals better, easier, increase their time? So like a good example of this was we did a project where we had a whole bunch of gearboxes. And their inspection process was they actually pulled off the plug and they checked for oil coming out of this gearbox and then put the plug back. I'm not going to say it happened, but I know there's quite a few of them. You can see that the plug wasn't there. It's pretty easy to see how a guy might have stuck his finger in just to check the level, knew it was there and keep going. Well, then he came back after he'd inspected all those gearboxes and would top them off with oil. So we put in a visual oil analysis, essentially, program where we put in sight glasses and quick connects. So we got rid of that plug that you took out and the little sight glass you can never see. And they literally walk past now and there's a level on the outside of the equipment where it is red or it's green. And we know it's full of oil. If it's really dirty looking, we know we've got issues. And then it's also got a quick connect with a hose and a pump bucket. So they can literally fill that oil level back up to full all in one process. So we consolidated 2 PMs. And this is not a cold plant. It is very hot. There's a lot of steam generated. So it's 100 degrees pretty much every time you go in there. So we also took a process where these guys were miserable doing it. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some pencil whipping on the PM that it was done and it might not have been. And these are critical pieces of equipment. So, what we did was we reduced contamination. We started to put some controls in place to keep moisture out of the equipment by adding desiccant breathers. And then we simplified it 2 sets of PMs. So instead of coming in 2 separate times, we really streamlined their labor activities. So these guys picked up a lot of extra time to do jobs that were more critical for the plant. They were probably reducing some potential safety issues, and they kept their equipment cleaner with the process. So those are the kind of things where you want to start thinking of how to get wins like that. And again, I don't want to just pitch me because there's people that listen to you from all over the country. The good reliability companies and the good lubricant companies. And a lot of those things are starting to flow together. We're one of the very few lubricant companies in the country that do this. But start asking around. When you see other companies in your area that are doing things well in the manufacturing sector, ask them who they use for reliability. And you'll find the people that are there to help and be partners, and you'll find the people that are there to just get a check for some repair work, and they'll be gone pretty quickly. And you want to really try to find that partner that's going to invest in you so that you invest in them. And then you get those win-wins that make both of you better.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial point for any business. But yeah, here your guys are out there saying, I'm investing in your success as well as, selling you a product. You're really developing a relationship and not just a transaction.
Yeah, and one of the things we've always been really proud of is we've kind of stayed third-party objective. There's a lot of companies that they do vibration well, they start doing motor work, or there's motor companies that get into vibration because there's a lot of parallels. But then are you flagging it because you need to repair something? There's always a perception that there might be an issue. And we've really tried to keep all of our services to where we're just there to give you the information. I don't care if you fix it or not, other than that, Lynn, I want to see your business be really successful so that you're around for another 20 years because I'm going to be in this community. I want you to be strong. But otherwise, if you don't fix it, it's not going to make any impact on me financially other than just telling you, here's where there's an issue, here's what's going on. And that's, I think, something important if you're looking for truly an engineered type assistance is you want somebody that the only skin in the game they have is for you being successful.
Great. All righty. Well, thank you, Conor. Any final thoughts you have for people that are leading businesses and looking at these things?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest one is just let's pick a technology and let's get you going. Let's look at there's huge amounts of opportunity for returns on investment, cost savings, risk mitigation, and, in the environment we're in right now with manufacturing, we've got some pretty interesting dichotomies. We've got plants like food plants that are running at an all-time pace, so they can't shut down. So we need to make these investments. But then we have some manufacturing sectors that are lagging right now. So what a great time to start figuring out how to have partners to help us keep our equipment alive longer and make sure that we're not putting labor hours to things that are on the surface seem like they're a really good thing, but we're actually putting too much grease in our equipment and we're killing it. And we think we're doing a good thing and patting ourselves on the back. So it's a great time to get into reliability. There's some very affordable, very efficient, very effective options. And certainly if there's anything I can do to help, you let me know. But ask around, ask who's doing it well, and you'll know in your community real quick.
Well, and Conor, I'll have your contact information in the show notes for the podcast. So if anybody wants to reach out, your contact information will be there. So again, I thank you very much for sharing this time with us, and have a great week.
I appreciate it.
Again, my deepest thanks to Conor for sharing his insights and explaining and developing predictive maintenance programs to minimize costs and create more output. As a quick recap, we talked about an overview of predictive maintenance and its benefits to you as a manufacturer. And then we talked about some specific tools: vibration analysis, thermography, oil analysis, and leak detection. And finally, Conor shared with you some of what are the first steps that you can take to start your journey on predictive maintenance. So what's up next? We're going to continue a mix of solo episodes and interviews with experts, some in manufacturing, but also some in areas that can help you build your business in other ways. Also, in at least one episode during the month, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and ideas on becoming a silver entrepreneur. In other words, what you might do with your second act in life, and also how silver talent might be helpful for you and your business. Now, in our next episode, we're going to talk with Jeff Alspaugh with IMEC, the Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center, the chapter in Illinois. He will share with us what he's learned working with manufacturers in Illinois during the pandemic. Again, I encourage you to visit my website and download the summary at the bottom of the podcast episode to help you as you explore the ideas from this episode. And to help you get started on your journey and to stay up to date on new episodes, please download the free worksheet, 3 steps you need for a more productive workday. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.